Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
Tragedy struck at the SCTX Toll Plaza in Tarlac on May 1 when a multi-vehicle collision left 10 people dead and over 20 others injured.
The Department of Education vows to address functional illiteracy among senior high school students.
President Marcos says wage hike proposals need more study to avoid yet another sweet promise unfulfilled.
And the final four teams gear up for a bruising semi-finals clash in the UAAP volleyball tournament.
First in the news, 10 people were confirmed dead and more than 20 others were injured in a multi-vehicle collision at the SCTX Toll Plaza in Tarlac on May 1. Initial investigation showed that the crash occurred when a bus slammed into a stationary SUV waiting at the toll gate along with several other vehicles. The impact triggered a chain reaction, causing the SUV to plow into the vehicles in front of it.
Pagising ko na lang, wala. Sobrang lakas na ng impact. Kasi simula nung pagsakay ko pa lang sa Dao Bus Stop Terminal, nakatulog na kagad ako. Tapos pagising ko, nangyari na kagad yung insidente. Parang ano rin po kasi dito sa mukha ko. Parang ang tawag doon, nabugbog. Pagkagising ko po, gulo-gulo na lahat ng upuan sa loob ng bus.
The injured were rushed to the Tarlac Provincial Hospital for treatment. In response, Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon has directed Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board to immediately suspend Solid North's operations.
Karamihan po doon sa mga injured po rito, hindi pa po kilala yung karamihan. Kasi wala pong mga ibang pagkakakilanlan. So kasalukuyan pa pong iniimbestigahan pa po ng ating mga investigador yung kanilang mga pagkakakilanlan. So ito po, sana po ngayon is sa mga manonood ninyo is makarating sa kanila na nasa Tarlac Provincial Hospital pa po yung karamihan na unidentified pa po.
In other news, senators sound the alarm. 18 million high school graduates struggle to understand what they read. Labeled functionally illiterate by the Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA. Education groups urge teachers to make sure students master reading skills before graduation. Here's the report.
Patungo sa sambayanan sa paglikha bagong Pilipinas.
Already a senior high school graduate, 20-year-old Bong is still struggling to read this story from News 5 Digital. The story, Labor Day messages from the President and Vice President. Bong admits English is still difficult for him. There are times when he speaks words different from what is written in the text. Sa mga pangunahing detalye, nakakasagot naman siya. Pero kapag ang tanong ay bakit o paano, siya'y nabablangko.
Sino yung dalawang nagsalita?
Ferdinand Marcos Jr. tapos Sara Duterte po.
Bakit sila nabigay ng mensaheng gano'n?
Para maano rin po yung mga ibang tao po. Parang hindi ko masabi.
Bong is taking side jobs in construction and at an eatery as a dishwasher to earn a living.
Nakikisabay dahil po sa kaklase ko para malibre lang po sa pamasahe. Pag wala po, hindi po makakapasok.
Bong still has spending requirements in school, so he would join the graduation ceremony in June. But he would still be able to get his diploma once all pending tasks are completed. Bong adds to over 90 million high school graduates struggling to read, write, compute, and comprehend, or what the Philippine Statistics Authority defines as functionally illiterate. This means 1 out of 5 graduates cannot comprehend even a simple text, raising alarm bells among senators.
That should not happen. DepEd should already be proactive in making sure that no one will graduate not being functional literate. That's quite concerning.
The Department of Education said it is moving to address the issue. According to DepEd Secretary Sonny Angara, the department will strengthen interventions such as remedial and literacy programs. Lessons will be taught in a deeper sense so students can be mindful on the information that they receive. Gatchalian says teachers must ensure no student will graduate without learning how to read.
Siguraduhin na marunong sila magbasa bago gumraduate at intensify, no, lalong palakasin yung tinatawag natin foundational skills, yung magbasa at magbilang.
But one teacher and media literacy advocate asked,
paano siya matututo magbasa kung yung nagturo sa kanya, hindi rin naman marunong ng maayos na pagbabasa? Because reading is not just reading. That's a role, right? And make sure na hindi lang sila pumasa, pero talagang natuto sila.
Other groups are calling for the return of the old curriculum to bring back the no read, no pass policy. As for Bong, he has no plans to pursue college anymore.
Mag-a-apply lang rin po ng trabaho para makatulong rin po sa magulang.
Yon. So yesterday
we talked about it with Professor Elinor Barami.
UST educator siya. And we talked about the factors, 'di ba, na maaaring mag-contribute nga dito sa ganitong klaseng
issues. But let's discuss this further. Joining us today is Hannibal Kamua, Executive Director of the Philippine Business for Education. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning po at magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat at sa viewers po ng inyong show.
All right, the magic number is 18 million. High school graduates daw are to be functionally illiterate. Why has this happened? Or we talked to a professor yesterday, parang this has been happening daw since before pa. Pero ngayon lang daw parang napapansin.
Well, correct po. I would like to believe kami po sa Philippine Business for Education naman is for the longest time we've been sounding the alarm that there is an ongoing education crisis in our country. And itong findings po na to ng 2024 FLEMS na kung saan makikita natin na napakataas po ng numero ng mga functionally illiterate, it's more of an affirmation already, no? Na nakikita, it's a confirmation that there is the learning crisis, and we have to solve it as a country. There should be a whole of a society approach to solve it.
A lot of factors have already been weighed in dun po sa mga kinukonsider nila kung bakit po nagkaroon ng ganitong resulta, no, na talagang kabaha-bahala dahil 18 million nga po nakagraduate sila pero functionally illiterate sila, no? I'm sorry for that. But sa inyo po sa PBED, ano po ba yung nakikita niyong main reason bakit po tayo humantong sa ganito?
Well, kung titingnan natin, I think we have to give at least credit where credit is due, no? Titingnan natin na itong resulta na nakikita natin ngayon ng bagong ng 2024 na FLEMS ay actually this is a result also of revised definition ng PSA. Nag-reviso sila ng pag-define kung ano ang functional literacy. For context, sa mga previous na FLEMS po kasi, kapag high school graduate po, ay kino-consider na as functionally literate.
Okay.
Pero with the new updated definition, even high school graduates, tinanggal na po doon. Hindi na po automatic na kapag graduate ka, functionally literate ka. So I think that steep increase, no, and therefore resulting into that 18 million high school graduates natin na nakita na not functionally literate is also due of the revision in the definition. As what I've said, we give credit where credit is due, and I think this is one of the efforts of our government and also with the EDCOM 2 na para mas maintindihan talaga yung problema. Ngayon, kita natin na the problem is really on functional literacy, na may mga pumapasa at dumadaan sa ating education system na hindi marunong magbasa, magsulat at napakababa ng kanilang reading comprehension.
But talking about comprehension, do you think also it's because ang main problem is the way the curriculum is designed to assess students? Parang it's as simple as right or wrong lang minsan sa mga exams or mga measurements. I mean, I was talking to the professor yesterday, pinagdaanan ko rin yan when I was in grade school, di ba? I was asked ano yung basic ingredient of a beef stew, and then I gave what I thought was right because ganun ang experience ko eh. Tapos minali ako ng school, di ba? So maybe we should assess also yung understanding instead of just assess kung ano yung na-memorize nila from the book.
I would agree, sir. I think it's really high time to look into the curriculum, particularly also on the early grades. No, so let's look at the curriculum for kinder and also for grades 1 to 3, because we believe na doon dapat magsimula at doon binibuild yung competency on literacy, numeracy, and also in comprehension. Kasi as nagpo-progress at tumataas ang grade level ng bata, dapat ano na siya, no? Yung foundation niya ng reading, comprehension, and also ng numeracy dapat nandoon na.
That's right.
Go ahead, sir.
No. I agree with you. Go ahead.
So, I think, sir, yun yung resulta na nakikita natin ngayon sa FLEMS. But as what I've said, this is but a confirmation already na malala ang education crisis sa ating bansa.
Right.
Kung titingnan po natin also, malaking factor din dito na matagal ang school closure during the pandemic. So, patong-patong na po ito or nagko-compound na po yung problema natin. Alam natin na before the pandemic, malaki na ang learning poverty ng Pilipinas. Yung mga grade 6 students natin only has the capacity of a grade 3 or a grade 4 before the pandemic in terms of reading and numeracy. And then nagsarado pa tayo ng eskwelahan for 2 years. So, this has been a compounding problem that has been ongoing for decades. And we are seeing the results now.
Yeah, and speaking of pandemic, sinasabi rin nila yung mass promotion, yung pinapasa na lang because we're in a pandemic, kawawa naman yung bata, kung hindi siya makagraduate, kawawa, may mga nakikiusap din na mga magulang at mga estudyante mismo sa mga teachers na ipasa na lang sila.
Correct, ma'am. It's really good that you mentioned mass promotion. And for context, kami po sa Philippine Business for Education, we were also the first to sound that alarm on that practice of mass promotion na pinapasa na lang or hinahayaan na ma-promote on the next grade level, even so kahit na hindi niya na fulfill yung mismong standard ng pagpasa. And again, uulitin ko, that's the reason why we are seeing these kinds of numbers, that 18 million of high school graduates are not functionally literate. Ibig sabihin, hindi sila ready for the workforce. Again, we're going to look back at the objective of K-12. Dapat at junior high school, senior high school, readily employable na sila. But if you have a graduate of senior high school or a high school program na hindi marunong magbasa, magsulat, magbilang, at particularly also on read comprehension, malaking problema yan. They could not be productive members of the workforce as expected kung may problema on comprehension.
Pwede ba rin ang problema dito is of course yung expectations of course ng na that are passed on to the schools in terms of their pass rates. Kasi whether private or public ka, meron silang specific mga binibigay na mga rebates or about accreditation. Pag maganda ang pass rate nila, number of students enrolled. Sometimes kasi makikita mo, madami nang pinapayagan mag-enroll or mag-progress into the next grade level kahit hindi pa pasok sa grade level para lang masabing pumasok sila at qualified sila at maganda ang pagtuturo dito sa isang school. So, could it be ganun din? Pressured na sila ang schools because they're turning into a business instead of really actually educating?
Actually learning.
Actually, sir, kung makikita natin, ganun yung mga metrics for school performance. Kung makikita natin na school performance is part of the metrics is yung kanilang passing percentage or rate of graduation. Now, of course, especially if ang metric is like that, the tendency is really towards mag-mass promote, no, or i-proceed or ipasa even though na hindi siya hindi niya nasasatisfy yung mismong requirement for graduation or promote into the next grade. This is what we are referring to in PBED as a more of systemic, no? Kailangan ng systemic reform. Kailangan ng masusing pag-iimbestiga, and then kailangan ng systemic reforms para ma-address ito.
Yes,
Because hindi pwede na papatse-patse or band-aid solutions na nakikita natin.
So this is really a serious concern that requires a systemic resolution. But with that, thank you so much for your time. That was Hannibal Kaumwa, ang Executive Director of the Philippine Business for Education or PBED. Maraming salamat po. Now, PNP Chief General Romel Marbil is mad about the supposed leakage of the confession of a suspect in the killing of Anson Ke. Here's the report.
The Philippine National Police is no longer considering the son of Anson Ke as a person of interest in the kidnap murder case of the Chinese businessman. PNP spokesperson Brigadier General Jin Fajardo made the clarification after suspect David Tan Liao implicated Alvin Ke as mastermind in his own father's killing. Fajardo said Liao had no evidence to prove this accusation.
Hindi naman niya maback-upan yun. Yung sinasabi niya, restaurant na pinuntahan nila, may mga tawag sila between him and Alvin Ke. Wala siyang maipatunayan doon. So, that is one of the reasons, many reasons, kung bakit sinabi namin, hindi tatayo yung kaso laban kay Alvin Ke.
Fajardo added that PNP Chief General Romel Marbil is mad about the supposed leakage of the extrajudicial confession of Liao. According to the PNP spokesperson, the leakage affected the public perceptions on the case.
We are not stupid enough para ilabas po ito. Katulad ng sinasabi po nila na stupido po kaming lahat para ilabas po yun. Hindi po kami ang naglabas noon. The Chief PNP is very mad. Galit po si Chief PNP. Kung sino po ang naglabas niyan, right here, right now, sabihin niyo po yung pangalan, kakasuhan po namin at i-dismiss po niyan sa serbisyo.
The PNP believes that Liao tried to mislead authorities through implicating the victim's son.
Hindi tayo naniniwala na sa mga sinasabi ni David Tan Liao, for all we know, ay minamadel niya yung investigation para hindi natin matumbok yung ibang mga kasamahan niya and possibly mastermind behind not just this kidnapping case of Anson Dan, but pati na rin po yung ibang mga kidnapping case.
Aside from Liao, two other suspects, namely Richard Austria alias Amay and Raymart Catequista alias Taba, are now under police custody. Mobile Journal Arles de los Santos, we are One News.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. called for fairness in the suspension order against Cebu Governor Gwendolyn Garcia. While acknowledging the Ombudsman's order, Marcos stressed that Garcia should be treated with fairness and respect as legal proceedings unfold. He further emphasized that any actions affecting an elected official's mandate must align with the Constitution and the Omnibus Election Code. The Ombudsman imposed a 6-month suspension on the governor due to a complaint of grave abuse of authority. This is related to the permit Garcia issued to a company during the water crisis in Cebu, despite alleged incomplete documents. Garcia has previously stated that she will not step down from her position and will challenge the suspension.
And we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
The calls for a wage increase still needs to be studied carefully, according to President Bongbong Marcos. Speaking at the 123rd Labor Day celebration at the SMX Convention Center in Pasay City, he highlighted the potential impact of the proposal on the Philippine economy. He also pointed out that the regional tripartite wages and productivity boards are continuously reviewing wage levels across various regions. Since June of last year, 16 regions have already implemented wage hikes and 28 wage orders have been approved.
Masarap pakinggan ang matatamis na mga pangako. Ngunit ang mga ito ay may epekto sa paglago ng negosyo, trabaho at ekonomiya. We hear the call of our workers for better wages and assure you that your concerns are being addressed.
Now, to talk more about this, we are joined by National Labor Relations Commissioner Hernan Nicdao. Good morning po sa inyo, sir. Thanks for joining us today.
Magandang umaga po.
We would like to ask for your comment, reaction doon po sa kapapalabas lang po na statement ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos regarding wage increase.
Una po sa lahat, no, ang ating pong mga minimum wage increases ay pinadadaan through sa tinatawag na regional wage boards.
Yes.
Although sa ngayon po, meron pong pending na legislative initiative para sa wage hike. Meron pong 100 pesos na wage hike na across the board, minimum wage increase na pending ngayon sa Senado at meron naman pong 200 pesos sa Congress. Tungkol po sa ating wage boards, ang patakaran po ay kailangan lumipas muna ang isang taon bago magkaroon ulit ng tinatawag na minimum wage increase. Ang nakaraan po na wage increase ay kung hindi po ako nagkakamali ay huling nagkaroon ng mga middle of June of last year. So while po sa ngayon ay hindi pa maaaring magkaroon kaagad ng wage increase itong eksaktong Labor Day, iniutos na po ng ating mahal na Pangulo na pag-aralan ng ating mga wage boards or magsimula ng magkaroon ng deliberation regarding a possible wage increase. Simula po ngayon, para po pag-lapse po nung 1 year, maaari na po siguro na kaagad-agad ay magkakaroon kaagad ng wage increase. So, yun po yung background po doon.
Yes. But ang sinasabi po kasi ng mga laborers, sir, dyan kung sa regional tripartite board padadaanin, yung mga increase yan, utay-utay, 30 pesos, 20 pesos, hindi naman daw po talaga sapat yun.
Ganito po, no? Una po sa lahat, ako po ay 20 taon na naging isang labor leader. Ako po ay mula sa hanay ng mga manggagawa. Ako po ay inappoint lamang ni Pangulong Marcos nitong December 2022 or mga 6 na buwan makalipas siyang umupo. So ako rin po ay isa sa mga dating file ng petition sa wage boards nung ako po ay labor leader, being the former General Secretary of the Philippine Trade and General Workers Organization and the Assistant General Secretary of the Trade Union Congress of the Philippines. Anyway po, ang proseso po sa wage board ay mas mabilis kaysa sa legislated wage hike. Kasi po, ang number one, ang legislated wage hike, kailangan po ng deliberation sa Congress. Ang sa wage boards po ay ginagawa lamang ng regional wage boards at ang membership po nito ay tripartite na tinatawag. So ibig sabihin may member po ang pamahalaan, may member ang mga labor leaders or labor groups, at may member naman ang sa mga employer sector. So actually, yung fact po na nagkakaroon po ng wage increases taon-taon ay nagpapatunay lamang na mabilis din ang proseso naman sa ating wage boards. Ang sa tingin ko po ang mas importante, no? Ito pong nakaraang 3 taon sa panunungkulan ng ating Pangulong Bongbong Marcos, hindi naman po siya naging madamot sa ating mga manggagawa regarding sa pagbibigay ng minimum wage increase. Kung atin pong matatandaan, noon pong year 2022, nagkaroon po ng 33 pesos na wage increase. Noon naman pong 2023, nagkaroon po ng 40. So that's already 73 pesos. And last year po, nagkaroon ng another 35. So that's a total of 108 pesos in 3 years' time. Yun pong clamor for, ang naalala ko po, nagkaroon po sa Congress una ng 150 na wage increase. Pero tumaas po ito nitong huli ng 200, pero ang Senado po ay 100.
Yes,
at yung bill po yata ng Senado for 100 pesos wage increase was filed already
2024. Nasa third and final reading po yun.
Doon po nagkaroon ng third and final reading, but it was filed way back earlier po. Ang punto ko lang po is that over the last 3 years, 108 na rin po ang nadagdag sa ating minimum wage. Pautay-utay po, Pero naabot na po yung 100 pesos o nalagpasan pa. Yung 100 pesos na minimum wage increase na prescribe po nung Senate bill.
Pero ang sinasabi, go ahead.
Kahapon nga po, nandun po ako ron sa SMX Convention Center, dun sa Labor Day celebration. Kausap namin, napanood ko po si President Marcos at si Secretary Laguesma at ang ibang mga opisyal ng DOLE, kasama po ang mga representatives ng labor at representatives ng management. Ang sabi ko nga po sa kanila, kung halimbawa po na magkaroon po ng 42 pesos. Halimbawa lang po, magkaroon ng 42 pesos na wage increase this year, then 150 na po yung total nun in 4 years' time.
Yeah. Well, di naman din po tayo, kumbaga, sa inyo rin po nanggaling na dati po kayong laborer. Siyempre, ang sinasabi po ng mga labor leaders din natin dito ngayon ay talagang sa taas po kasi ng inflation natin eh. Kahit po i-adapt nyo na po yung mga nabanggit nyo pong amount ay hindi po talaga nagkakasya doon sa pang-araw-araw na gastusin ng ating mga manggagawa. And with that, sabi po din nila, yung nabanggit nyo rin po sa job fair kahapon, ang ilan po sa mga labor leaders na nagsasabi, kalokohan daw lamang itong mga job fair na ginagawa ng gobyerno dahil 5% lamang daw ang nare-recruit doon at ino-organisa lamang daw ng gobyerno yung kumbaga hiling lang ng mga business sectors.
Babalik po muna ako ulit sa wage increase. Ang punto ko po is that meron pong parang pinili po ng ating mahal na Pangulo na ang pamamaraan ng pagtataas ng wage increase ay through the wage boards. Hindi po yung through legislated wage increase. Sa palagay ko po, ako bilang commissioner na ng NLRC, ako po ay nagbibigay ng full respect sa pagpili ng ating Pangulo sa pamamaraan na yon. Pero po, kahit po maliliit, kung ikukumpara po natin yung naging wage increases nitong nakaraang 3 taon, and sana nga po the same trend will continue, malaki po kumpara ron sa mga nakaraan. Kasi po ako nung panahon na nagfa-file po kami ng wage increase, ang binibigay po noon is 22 pesos. 22 pesos na ibibigay ng 2 taon pa, 2 tranches. Minsan in the form of COLA pa or cost of living allowance. So, naintindihan ko po, ako bilang dating labor leader, naintindihan ko po at malayo pa po siya. Wala pa nga po ito sa kalahati nung tinatawag na living wage. Dahil lang sabi po nila, ang living wage ngayon ay between 1,200 pesos to 1,500 pesos. Pero siguro po, depende nga rin po sa kakayahan ng mga employers, tinitimbang po yan ng ating wage boards at paunti-unti, pero hindi kasing kaunti nung mga nakaraang panahon ay namimit ang mga requirements ng ating mga manggagawa.
Based daw sa speed po ng inflation, no, and the way yung pagbibigay ng tranches po ng pag-increase sa minimum wage, ang sabi po ng iba kasing labor group, parang never in their lifetime po magkakaabot ang right wage para sa, parang at least to have a basic living wage daw. Kung pwede daw yung tranches na binibigay lakihan para by the time na umabot, let's say, 108 ang bibigay, tas tranches, by the time umabot doon, hindi naman useless din daw po ang pag-increase. Ano po ang tugon nyo doon?
Tama po yun. Kaya lang nga po, uulitin ko po, no? Yung pong ating wage boards, tinitimbang talaga nila yung kakayahan rin ng ating mga employer sector kung kakayanin yung ganong kabilis. Kung nagkaroon naman po nung tinatawag na extraordinary inflation, maaari pa rin pong kahit po hindi pa lagpas or hindi pa lumilipas ang 1 taon, maaari uling magsampa ng wage petition. So halimbawa po ngayon, sana nga kung halimbawa po na yung 42, medyo malaki po yun ang will be highest in 4 years time, aabot na siya ng 150 in 4 years time. Kung halimbawa po sana naman hindi rin mangyari, pero kung magkaroon nga ng extraordinary inflation, maaari pa rin pong mag-file ng petition for wage increase. Ang sa akin lang po, kahit po na kahit po na mabagal, at least mayroon po na mayroon pong tugon ang ating pamahalaan regarding sa ating mga wage increases. Sana po mas mabuti talaga kung halimbawang mas mataas ang maibibigay ng ating pamahalaan, pero ang ating pong mga nasa wage boards ay mga eksperto naman at kanilang tinitimbang ang lahat ng mga factors na ikukonsidera kung kakayanin ang higit pa sa halaga na kagaya po last year nga, ang ibinigay 35, sana mas malaki pa this year. Kung mahigit pa sa 35 ang maibibigay nila this year, ay talagang mas makabubuti sa ating mga manggagawa.
You mentioned about looking at all the factors, no? Sino ba po ang insahanay ng mga kumpanya, no? Sino mas tinatamaan po with a higher increase sa minimum wage? Are you looking at the big corporations or yung mga nasa middle? Kasi madami nagsasabi, if you compute it, mga ekonomista, kung magtataas ka ng sweldo, itong mga big corporation, although malaki ang pondo, mag-i-increase daw po daw yan ng prices para bawiin daw ang pagbayad ng sweldo, which could also contribute to inflation.
Maaari po siguro yun na ang sinasabi nila ay inflationary ang pagtataas ng sweldo, kasi kaakibat nga noon ay magtataas din ang presyo ng cost of goods para naman maibawi dun sa cost of labor ng ating mga producers or ng ating mga employers. Pero po, we'll have to understand po na ang karamihan po, in fact, ang sabi nila nasa 90% daw po. I will need to check my numbers. Pero ang sabi po nila is nasa 90% po ng ating mga kumpanya or mga negosyo sa Pilipinas ay kasali rin sa tinatawag na MSMEs, from micro, small and medium scale enterprises. Ang sabi nga po nila, yung top 4,000 na mga kumpanya, yun lang yung talagang masasabi mong mga malalaking enterprises who can absorb all of these shocks, kumbaga, pag halimbawang nagkaroon po ng across the board or minimum wage na increase. Pero po yung karamihan sa mga maliliit na kumpanya, yung mga nag-i-empleyo lamang ng mga higit sa 10 na mga kumpanya, yun po ang talagang mararamdaman nila kung halimbawang magkakaroon po ng wage increase. Alam niyo po, kung okay lang po na magpatuloy ako.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Ako po ay galing sa pag-uunyon. Kasi po sa pag-uunyon, minsan po kasi ang sinasabi nila hindi mabuti yung merong union. Pero mabuti po yung merong union. Kasi kagaya po kami dati, nung kami ay nasa pag-uunyon, kami po ay nagkakaroon ng tinatawag na collective bargaining agreement sa mga kumpanya kung saan kami ay may union. Sa collective bargaining agreement, nagkakaroon po kami ng wage increases na over and above dun sa minimum wage increase. So, doon po, kami ay responsabling union naman ng matagal na panahon. So, kami po, inaalam rin namin bilang union, bilang responsabling union, yung kakayahan ng mga kumpanya na makapagbigay ng wage increases. So, sa paraan po ng pag-uunion, kung ano po yung, parang each according to his or their own capacity.
That's right.
Parang ganun po yun. So, kasi po mahirap po talaga yung across the board. Kasi pag across the board, kagaya po ng minimum wage increase, yung maliit, yung malaki, pare-parehas tatamaan. So, ang hindi po natin alam, baka laging may umaangal po eh. Lagi nating sinasantabi yung pag-angal ng mga kumpanya na sinasabing hindi nila kakayanin. Pero, siguro po mache-check natin yan sa Department of Labor or sa DTI kung gaano karami ang mga nagsasarang kumpanya dahil sa nagkakaroon ng mga wage increases ang ating mga wage boards.
Yes.
I'd like to touch up a little on yung small enterprises that you mentioned a while ago, no? Kasi may ibang business model sa ibang countries, sa mga European countries, the smaller businesses or family-owned business, ang ginagawa po nila, instead of actually meeting minimum wage, pinapayagan sila through other means. In other words, allowances, transportation allowances, food allowances, communication allowances. Isang model po sa Pilipinas, pwede po ba yung ganon?
Maaari po yun. Ganito po yun, no? Before po, meron tayong tinatawag na cost of living allowance. Yung cost of living allowance, ang diferensya po nun is that on the part ng mga manggagawa, yung COLA po, hindi po siya counted doon sa nabubuwis na ating sweldo.
So non-taxable.
Okay? Opo. So dahil hindi po siya nabubuwis, hindi siya nababawasan. Kaya lang po, dahil allowance lang siya, ang hindi naman po kagandahan doon is that wala po siya ng multiplier na tinatawag. So hindi po siya dumadagdag sa overtime pay, sa premium, sa holiday pay, pati sa 13th month pay. Hindi po siya dumadagdag. Pero po, again, no, kung ang approach po ay parang malawakan, parang ang wage board din ang magbibigay ng allowances na ito, hindi rin natin alam ang epekto sa mga across the board sa mga kumpanya, 'di ba? Kaya nga po, again, ulitin ko po, kasi kami po sa pag-uunion, pati po yan na-determine po namin. Kung halimbawa po na, kung hindi nyo kaya na magbigay ng wage increase, baka kagaya ng sinabi mo po, transportation allowance yung ibigay mo sa mga tao, o kaya rice allowance, minsan totoong bigas, yung bigas mismo ang ibibigay sa mga tao. So, yun po, nade-determine na po on the per establishment ang pagbibigay ng mga certain na allowances na ganito.
Sir Hernan, although nakikita po natin may mga dialogo naman po sa pagitan ng DOLE at saka ng mga laborers po natin, ang sinasabi po nila kasi wala pa daw po silang dialogo sa pagitan naman po ng presidente at kanilang mga grupo. Now, you're on the other side of the fence now. Magagawa niyo po ba ito ng paraan para daw mapapakinggan po sila ng personal ng Pangulo?
Siguro po paparating po natin kay pero mas kami po bilang NLRC, kami po ay attached agency ng Department of Labor and Employment. Ipaparating ko po kay Secretary Laguesma ang nasabi po ninyo. Siguro po maaaring siya ang magparating sa ating Pangulo ng kahilingan ng ating mga labor leaders na magkaroon ng dialogo kay Pangulong Marcos.
And lastly po sir, base po doon sa nasabi nyo rin kanina na nasa job fair po kayo yesterday at nakausap nyo rin po bahagya ang ating Pangulo at ang ating Labor Secretary. Meron daw po bang possibility na ma-certify as urgent yung batas na pinag-uusapan po natin kanina?
Hindi ko po nakausap si Pangulo, no? Ang nakausap ko po ay sila Secretary at medyo busy po sila at hi hello lang po kami. Pero yung iba pong mga senior officials ang mga nakakwentuhan ko po. Pero po yung again base po sa sinabi ni Pangulong Marcos sa kanyang speech kahapon, ang inatasan niya po ay ang ating regional wage boards na pag-aralan ang pagkakaroon ng wage increase even if wala pang isang taon ang lumipas mula noong nakaraang wage increase. I'm talking particularly po sa ating National Capital Region. Pero po, siguro po, proceeding from that sinabi ng ating Pangulo, mukhang ang preference niya po, mukha po hindi po pinangunan, pero parang ang preference niya po ay through the wage board at hindi po dun sa through the legislated wage increase.
Yun kasi hinihingi din ng mga ibang laborers. Pero yun nga, as we've seen kanina rin sa kanyang statement. But with that, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras, National Labor Relations Commissioner Hernan Nicdao. Magandang umaga po sa inyo.
The National Bureau of Investigation issued a subpoena to a content creator identified as Jenny for spreading false claims online about a supposed feud between the NBI and the PNP over a 10 million reward for information leading to the arrest of Apollo Kibuloy. NBI Director Jaime Santiago clarified that there was no conflict between the agencies, saying Jenny misrepresented a routine checkpoint as a confrontation. He emphasized the NBI's commitment to combating disinformation, warning that fake news misleads the public and causes unnecessary confusion. While the content creator has issued a public apology, Santiago said the case remains under review and she may still face consequences.
Nag-post siya na ang NBI daw at ang PNP ay kumbaga nag-aaway, nag-uunahan sa 10 million bounty para sa pag-aresto kay Pastor Kibuloy. So walang katotohanan yung ganyan, no? Tapos pinost niya sa kanyang vlog na yun nga hininto ng PNP yung isang kotse ng NBI at ginawa na nila ng istorya na ganun nga. So walang ganung istorya.
Now, to further discuss this issue, we have NBI Director Jaime Santiago joining us today on the line. Magandang umaga po sa inyo, Director.
Ay, ma'am, magandang umaga po, sir. Sa mga nakikinig natin.
Opo. Sir, tanong ko lang po, what prompted the NBI to open po itong investigation dito po sa naging content na pinost ni Jenny? Meron po bang nag-complain or nasa radar nyo na po yung mga ganitong klaseng posts?
Wala po. Napunanap namin, nating lahat, na rampant na. Sobra na ang mga fake news, yung mga content creator na makapag-create lang ay nagbibigay na sila ng mga maling pahayag sa ating mamamayan na nakaka-create nga ng confusion sa atin. Ganun po.
Ito pong post ni Jenny, no? Ano po ang kaso na maari pong isampa dito dahil sa ginawa niya?
Violation ng Article 154, illegal unlawful use of means of publication in connection, in relation to cybercrime. Ganun po. Yung 154 po, yung unlawful publication, ay mababa lang yun. 6 na buwan na pagkakakulong lang yan. But dahil na-commit niya through cybercrime, ginagamit niya yung mga apps natin, ay 1 degree higher. Kaya pwede siyang makulong up to 6 years. Ganun po yun.
Okay.
Yun nga po, yung alias Jenny nga po ay inimbitahan, na-trace po namin kung nasan siya, kung sino siya. Na-trace po namin at sinumpi na namin, dinala sa NBI. Ayun, nung hinarap ko nga po sa mga media, ay nag-iiyak na at I'm sorry. Ganun po.
Yes, Director, kasi yung mga nakita ng mga netizen natin, of course, yung na-post ni Jenny, no? Pero ano po ba talaga yung nangyari sa operation para at least malinawan din ng public?
Ay, wala po. Actually, hindi naman po kami ang nakahuli ng kay Sir Kibuloy, di ba?
Yes,
operation po yan ng CIDG na tsaka matagal na hong nangyari yan. Ngayon, yun ho ay walang may umaandar yung yung aking NBI, may pupuntahan, tapos natapat may checkpoint. So huminto sila, siyempre checkpoint, irerespeto mo. O nung malaman naman ng PNP na NBI yung sakay, wala lang, di lakad na. Ginawa nila ng istorya na nag-aagawan daw sa 10 million bounty. Jesus Mariose po.
Sir, nabanggit nyo nga po na nag-iiyak nga po itong si Jenny at nag-apologize po siya. At nakita rin po natin ito sa mga reports. Sinabi po niya ang dahilan sa kanyang pag-post nito ay para makakuha ng likes and shares. With that po, itutuloy na po talaga natin yung kaso sa kanya. Hindi po natin siya pagbibigyan.
Pinag-aaralan po nating mabuti, kasi ayoko naman na makita ng mga tao, iiyak ka lang pala kay Direktor, papatawanin ka na. Hindi po, pinag-aaralan po naming mabuti ng once and for all, matigil na itong mga fake news na ito. Nakakaawa ang ating mga kababayan na yun lang, akala nila, yung creation nila, para kumita lang, ay ayos na. Wala po yung iniwan sa yung nagtitinda ka ng shabu. Ay sasabihin mo, naghahanap buhay lang. Tinitinda mo yung shabu. Yun naman, inilalako mo fake news, huhulihin ka talaga ng ating authorities. Ganun po yun.
Director, taking a look at yung mga ibang content creator, ang dami po talagang laganap na fake news ngayon. Ano po ngayon ang ginagawa ng NBI, at least po ay mabawasan ito? But there's no doubt po na ang dami na pong nag-aaway-away ng mga Pilipino dahil sa mga fake news na ito.
Opo, ayun nga po. Kaya patuloy po namin na sinusubaybayan. Alam nyo, sa totoo lang, meron kaming about 40 na sa aming list. At yun ay isusugpi na namin lahat. Kakausapin ko. Titignan natin. Etong katulad si Jenny, first time niya nag-try. Single mother, may anak na pinapalaki para kumita lang daw at wala siyang hanap buhay. So tinitignan natin yung mga ganong aspeto. Tao naman tayo, may puso naman tayo, no? Titignan po natin. Pero yung iba na talagang ginawa ng hanap buhay yan at ayun ang sasawatain natin, sir.
Ayan, para Director Malinaw, may tinitignan po kayong 40 na possible na issue ng supina. Tama po ba yun?
Yes. Opo. 40 po, 40.
Yes,
40.
Dito po sa 40 na to,
at least
ito to sa 40 na po ito, meron po ba tayong mga known personalities, known influencers na makakasama?
Meron po. Meron po. Wala po tayong sisinuhin at papakita natin na pantay-pantay. Parehas po ang ating pag-iimbestiga diyan sa kaso na yan. Mapa pro DDS, mapa pro BBM ay susupinahan po natin pagka mali ang kanilang ginagawa.
Alright, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. That was NBI Director Jaime Santiago. Thank you so much, sir. Now, in other news, COMELEC confirms only the Department of Agriculture can sell rice at 20 pesos per kilo during the election period, COMELEC Chairman George Erwin Garcia stressed that if LGUs participate in the rice distribution, it would be considered a form of assistance or ayuda. To avoid potential violations of election rules, the poll body asked the DA to temporarily suspend the rice rollout until after the May 12 elections. Garcia also reminded the public that all forms of aid are banned starting 10 days before Election Day, except for medical and burial assistance.
Pag ang LGU nakihati at nagbigay ng kanyang participation, yan po ay ayuda. And therefore, dahil ayuda yan, kinakailangang humingi ng exemption mula sa Commission on Election. Pwede naman po ipagpaliban muna hanggang Mayo 13. Sa May 13, hindi na po kailangan ng exemption ng COMELEC. Pwede na po i-distribute yan kahit na 19 pesos at hindi 20 pesos.
Don't go away, we're not done yet. Please stay with us. Friday.
Yeah,
you are watching Still News and Views, pero excited kasi ako because it's a Friday and
yes, it's
bilis,
Buddha's Belly's time.
From Marge, of course, our favorite.
Advance happy birthday.
Our favorite hakaw ba to?
Yeah, hakaw and pork
spare ribs.
Yes.
Sarap-sarap. All right, let's move on.
In weather, Pag-asa continues to monitor a low-pressure area within the Philippine territory. The LPA was last spotted some 440 kilometers east of Hinatuan, Surigao del Sur. Its chance of developing into a tropical depression remains low as of the moment. However, the weather disturbance will start to bring rains over several areas. These include eastern and central Visayas, northern Mindanao, Caraga, Davao Region, Catanduanes, Albay, Sorsogon, and Masbate. The rest of Visayas and Mindanao may also experience rains due to the ITCZ, while easterlies will trigger rains across Luzon, including Metro Manila. Despite that, several areas may continue to experience dangerous heat indices. It is forecast to be hottest in Infanta, Quezon today at 45 degrees Celsius heat index.
In sports, NU, UST, FEU, and DLSU are set to clash in the Final Four of the UAAP Season 87 men's and women's volleyball tournaments. In the men's division, the NU Bulldogs will battle the UST Golden Spikers at 10 a.m. on Saturday, May 3. This will be followed by a showdown between the FEU Tamaraos and the DLSU Green Spikers at 12 noon. In the women's bracket, the FEU Lady Tamaraos take on the NU Lady Bulldogs at 2 p.m. The day will conclude with a highly anticipated matchup between the DLSU Lady Spikers and the UST Golden Tigresses at 6 p.m.
Young badminton hopefuls poured their passion into every swing at the First Pacific Leadership Academy in Antipolo, all chasing a dream, earning a spot on the junior national team. Mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho has the story.
Mapa Luzon, Visayas o Mindanao man, may ibubuga talaga ang mga Pinoy pagdating sa larangan ng badminton. Ang ilang piling young talents nabigyan ng pagkakataong ipakita ang galing nila sa pag-asang mapabilang sa juniors national team natin sa badminton. Dito yan sa First Pacific Leadership Academy sa Antipolo.
The best of the best gathered in a single court, all chasing the same dream, to wear the country's colors and represent the Philippines on the international stage. At the heart of it all, a selection camp for the Philippine national junior team held from May 1 to 4.
So we really want to have a sustainable program where we develop the next generation. As early as possible, we want to expose them to the international stage because that's where we get to gauge how far we are from our counterparts from all across the world.
Their mission is clear.
We want to give opportunities for our young players to really see where they are and to develop their skills early on because our biggest goal is to really develop the next Olympians. We want to continuously have Olympic-level talents for badminton here in the Philippines.
A vision made possible through a nationwide ranking system with camp invitees selected from the current national roster and champions of recognized tournaments.
There are so many players for badminton. So since we are composed of different islands, it's quite hard for the association to kind of look at all of the talents. So that's what we did.
Among those showing promise is J.R. Pandi, a proud Mindanao native and a current member of the national team. He may have just finished his second match of the day, but his journey started long before, when he first picked up a racket at just 3 years old.
Siyempre naman po kasama na po yung maging part ng national team ng country niyo po. So, pero siguro as a player, para sa sarili ko po, gusto ko po talaga mag-Olympics yan. Sana po maabot po sa tulong po na PBAY. Sana po magtuloy-tuloy po yung ganitong program po for juniors since bihira po yung ganitong opportunity po. So bale, sana sabay-sabay po kami mag-improve sa ganitong paraan po.
With only 12 athletes making the final roster.
Right now, given the selection, this format, we get to see how they play. I mean, we get to test also their fitness, okay? And we also get to see how strategically they play the game.
This selection camp is more than just a test. It's a stepping stone towards the international scene, including the Asian Junior Championships and World Junior Championships. And for these young dreamers, it's also a reminder that they belong, they have a shot, and they have a future here.
I mean, we are encouraging them to really improve more, develop more, and we're here to help them in terms of program, training, and they can see that there is a brighter future waiting for them eventually.
Mobile Journal Denise Valdesancho. We are One News.
And before we go, I'd like to leave everyone with a quote. Friday is not the end, but the reward. A reminder that every effort, every challenge faced this week brought you closer to who you're becoming. And that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again on Monday. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
I'm Angelo Castro III. We are One News.
All sides, all the time.